President Putin, you're taking some notes on that, and I would add one aspect, if you allow me.
Мы все записываем,
I'm taking notes of everything. We record everything. Don't worry about that. Don't even doubt it. I can assure you that every single step taken is well taken note of.
Am I in trouble?
Well, I'm sure you'll be able to overcome those, and we will assist you in doing so.
I welcome all participants and guests of the 28th St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. Its format traditionally implies detailed and substantive discussions on the most pressing topics. We are pleased that representatives from 140 countries and territories have joined these discussions at the forum. This year, among the topics, all of which are important and, as colleagues often say in such cases, certain discussion tracks, the quality of growth in a multipolar world that faces major challenges. These include tectonic shifts in the global economy and demography, including the dynamics of the world's population, as well as social and geopolitical tensions, which are manifesting through crises and regional conflicts that flare up rapidly. Unfortunately, we witness it today in the Middle East. Finally, climate change and acute environmental issues that require action. And, of course, the transition to a new technological order based on digital platforms, artificial intelligence, and autonomous systems capable of making decisions even without human intervention. The question is how to ensure that positive technological changes reach all, that new digital technological solutions are accessible, enabling countries, regions and cities to reach a new level of progress, rise upwards, ensuring that the effect of technological breakthroughs benefits everyone. Despite the complex world situation, Russia's GDP has increased by more than 4% annually over the past 2 years, growing at rates above the global average. Regarding the structure of this growth, I will cite a specific indicator, the so-called non-oil and gas GDP, clear of the influence of hydrocarbon extraction industries. The growth of Russia's non-oil and gas GDP in 2023 was 7.2%, in 2024, almost 5 to 4.9%. These are substantial figures and more significant than the overall GDP. In other words, the contribution of the raw materials sector to our country's economic dynamics is no longer decisive. Moreover, at this moment, it has even turned negative. However, the overall GDP growth was not solely tied to the defense industry, as some believe. True, it was important, but we must carefully look at the structure of this growth. Over 2 years, positive trends were noted in agriculture, industry, the construction sector, logistics, services, finance, and IT. The perception of the Russian economy as solely resource-based and dependent on hydrocarbon exports is clearly outdated. It is fading, and reality suggests otherwise. Russia now ranks 4th in the world in terms of gross domestic product. In Europe, 1st. This is not per capita but gross domestic product, meaning the size of the economy. Still, these are very significant indicators. But achieving such results is not enough. It is important to constantly affirm the status as one of the largest economies. We must achieve moderate inflation and low unemployment. According to statistics, annual inflation has already decreased to single-digit levels below 10%. As of June 16, it was 9.6%. There's a new quality of foreign trade, both in exports and imports. The goal has already been set to increase non-oil and gas exports. To achieve this, we will develop relationships with partners, remove trade barriers, open new market niches, create infrastructures, and deepen investment cooperation. I remind you that we agreed to prepare long-term cooperation plans with key partners. A good example of such work is the Strategic Cooperation Plan with the People's Republic of China until 2030. Preparation of action plans, including with countries such as India, should be completed soon. In Russia, on the contrary, we need to focus on producing more technologically advanced, complex goods and services with a higher level of automation, with high added value, which will also contribute to improving the quality of employment in our country. And, of course, together with the partners from the Eurasian Economic Union, we will adjust customs and tariff policies to stimulate the formation of new production chains, the transfer of advanced technological solutions to our countries, which should also help improve the quality of employment and create high-paying jobs in Russia. Where possible, it is necessary to achieve the integration of the defense industrial complex with the civilian sector, to establish the production of dual-use products, and, frankly, it doesn't need to be established, because some things are inherently dual-use, which are in demand in the maritime, river technology sphere, in aviation, electronic industries, in the production of medical equipment, in agriculture, and so on. I can say more. We need to move away from dividing companies into purely defense industry and enterprises working exclusively in the civilian segment. Implementing surveillance and control systems using artificial intelligence has drastically reduced the number of offenses, say, in Moscow, as well as the use of inexpensive unmanned aerial vehicles, which have become an effective means of destroying expensive equipment. We will, of course, also take into account our own negative experiences. Everything goes into the treasury for making the right decisions in the necessary direction for us. Overall, our defense industrial complex has gained a good pace. Companies and industries have increased their output, mastering new types of weapons and military technology. And again I emphasize, we will use new technological bases to enhance the combat capabilities of the Russian armed forces, modernize military infrastructure facilities, equipping them with the latest technology, samples of weapons and equipment that have proven their effectiveness in practice, in combat conditions. At the same time, we intend to develop military technical cooperation with friendly countries. And it's not just about supplying or upgrading equipment and weapons, but also about joint developments, training personnel, creating enterprises and production capacities on a turnkey basis. The global economy is undergoing the most large-scale transformation in recent decades. Countries in the global community are increasing their potential, changing the balance of power, and the entire economic picture of the planet. If at the beginning of the 21st century BRICS countries, for example, constituted a fifth of the global economy, just a fifth, today it is already 40% of the global economy. And it's clear that this share will only grow. This, as they say, is a fact. This will inevitably happen, primarily due to the dynamic states of the global south. It's necessary for this growth to become more sustainable, covering as many countries as possible. This requires a fundamentally new development model, built not on neo-colonialism rules, where the so-called golden billion extracts resources from other states in the interests of a narrow circle of so-called elites. Not even in the interests of all people of these countries, but specifically in the interests of the elites. The task is not to modernize the old mechanisms of the globalization era. They have largely exhausted themselves or even discredited themselves. It is necessary to propose a new development model, free of political manipulation, taking into account the national interests of states. And of course, this model should focus on the needs of citizens and their families. At the BRICS summit, by the way, which took place last autumn, as I mentioned, last year in Kazan, 35 countries, representing nearly two-thirds of the planet's population and half of the global economy, expressed a common understanding of approaches needed for the future world. Even today, BRICS countries set the bar in the development of so-called human-centered industries. Major projects are being launched to improve living environments. The BRICS states are implementing large-scale initiatives in nuclear energy and aviation, in the field of new materials and the IT industry, in robotics and artificial intelligence. And of course, we pay special attention to strengthening ties within BRICS. The mutual trade turnover of our countries has already exceeded $1 trillion and continues to grow. All this, in essence, is building blocks of a global growth platform, and they are based on key BRICS principles, which are consensus, parity, consideration of each other's interests. And most importantly, openness to everyone who wishes to join this work. Because the wider the circle of states involved in the formation and development of such a platform, the more stable and effective it will be. The greater benefit it will bring to all who understand their responsibility to the future and to future generations of their countries. Russia invites partners to contribute to the formation of a new global growth model.